Hey, what's up? Today we're going to talk about what's more important between work, money, income versus a relationship. And I think this depends on the individual, where they are in life, what's going good for them, what's going bad for them, what their goals are. For myself, right now, I would say that I would prioritize work over a relationship. And that's not to say that there wouldn't be moments where I wouldn't prioritize a relationship over work, but for the basis, I think I would prioritize work over a relationship. And there's a couple of reasons why. One is that to sustain yourself, to buy food, to put a roof over your head, to have access to internet that might be used to work, to pay for power, you basically need money. You need some kind of access to resources that you can kind of take care of yourself, and you kind of need that covered. You need to get past survival mode to kind of cross over into thriving mode, where you can maybe provide for other people. And so in order to maybe even have the relationship that you want to have, it's good to be able to support yourself first and then cross over to supporting somebody else. Another reason might be that this can kind of work in both favors, actually. So a relationship will probably outlast a job if you look at the average time somebody spends at a job. And in that sense, a relationship is very good. Although it's not always the case, but I think there's a good chance the relationship goes past, a strong relationship will go past one job, at least. But work as a concept as a whole is a lot longer of a time span. For example, if you look at somebody who's 23 and they retire at 65, that's, what is that, 42 years of work? So work in itself is a very long time. Whereas a job, you might be there, somebody might be at a job on average, maybe like 3 years. I don't know what the exact number is, but we'll use that as a minor example. And then if you compare it to maybe like divorce rates or breakup rates, I don't know what the number is exactly, but 42 years sticking through something is a very long time. And I know the divorce rate, from what I've heard, can be quite high. So in that sense, work can be good to prioritize. It can also often create an issue where maybe you are really deep in the relationship and you start to prioritize your significant other maybe more than yourself, more than your job. And that can kind of lead to dangerous territory. And what I mean by that is, if this relationship were to fail, and not to say that somebody should plan for that per se, but I think the trouble that can come from that is that if that were to capitulate, if that were to break down somehow, the relationship, there's a breakup, both parties go their separate ways, then it can kind of put you in this very bad state where you've put this person so high that it's hard to stabilize, because now they've just kind of rocked your world in some ways. Versus if you prioritize a job or work and the significant other disappears, then you're able to kind of still stabilize yourself because you can kind of fall back on work. But for example, if you're in a relationship and you lose your job, you can't necessarily fall back on your relationship. I mean, you can, and hopefully they've got enough to cover you, but that can only go for so long, right? Now, to kind of play devil's advocate, there are cases where a relationship would be prioritized over money or work or an income or job. And there are very important moments and milestones in relationships that would easily take priority over most work-related issues or tasks. But a few things for relationships is yes, they're probably going to outlast a job. The other one is maybe you might be like a sugar baby. And so the relationship in that sense is important, because being in that relationship might be bringing you money or other sorts of assets and things like that. So that in that sense, it could be useful as well. It also kind of depends on where you are in life, right? Like if you've got your work down, if you've got your finances down, but your relationship is struggling, or you're not getting any luck in the relationship realm, then yes, you probably a relationship is more important to you at that stage in life. Now, let's say you're thriving in a relationship, but you're really struggling. Maybe you've just lost your job and you're really struggling to find another one. In that sense, you probably want to prioritize work. And so it ebbs and flows, I think. Depends on what your goals are, where you are in life, how well you're doing at some things, how bad you're doing at some things. But end of the day, depends on the person. And you would think that the either or would not compromise the other. But for example, to have a partner or a relationship, somebody on board that understands what your priorities are, I think is to know what your priorities are, to have that communicated, and for your significant other to be on board with that, I think is really important. Because I think it's no good for anyone if you're not prioritizing the right things and the priorities aren't serving the right people. Anyways, thanks for watching. See you next time.